Hey everybody, it's Tim with Broken Dice. Welcome back to my solo battle report. It's a hypothetical engagement using English Civil War models, and employing the pike and shot rules by Warlord Games. All right, you can see the rebel forces win the roll-off, and so they will take the first part of turn 3. And let's look at the individual battalions and the order in which we will give them their orders. Rebel left flank has an 11, the center a 5, and the right flank rolled a 1. So in descending order, we will go left, rebel center, and then the right. Okay, on the rebel left flank, the rebel cavalry receive an individual order, and they are to charge the government cavalry. All right, the government cavalry employs closing fire. Because they are disordered, they needed a 5 or a 6 to hit. They did hit, and the rebel forces failed to save. This caused the rebel forces to become shaken and unable to complete the charge. All right, coming back to the commander, he moves over to his storming party, issues a follow me order, and the storming party charges the commanded shot. Okay, as the storming party advances towards the commanded shot, they receive closing fire as well. 3 shots, all 3 shots hit. The rebel storming party suffered 3 shots, but they were able to save 2 on a 5 and a 6. But with a roll of a 4, they take 1 damage. But because one of those 3 hits is a 6, so they automatically become disordered. And the rebel forces move into combat. They have 5 attacks. They hit 3 times. The government forces save 2 out of the 3 because they have the additional +1 for being in behind that wall in combat. So instead of needing a 5, they needed 4s. And so they saved 2 out of the 3, but they do take 1 damage. Government forces fight back. They strike 3 times. They hit once. The rebel forces take 1 hit and fail to save. This puts the unit at 3 damage, which makes the unit shaken. And the unit tests for break, but it passes and it remains in combat. All right, let's move over to the center. The center battalion commander, because of the lack of success of the attacking regiments in the center, has decided to order his shot units to return to the top of the hill and to form a battle line with the red units shot and try to deliver enough shot onto the advancing government forces that they need to hold in place, and we will see how this turns out. But he did issue a battalion order, so that worked out for him. Okay, they passed that test by quite a bit, I believe. I think they passed it by 3, so they were able to all move and form a battle line, and then fire upon the advancing government pike blocks. There were 4 units that could shoot, and out of all 4 units, each unit having 2 shots apiece, 1/6 was able to be rolled, and that was against this unit right here. So this unit suffering the 6 will become automatically disordered. Okay, and then they roll to save and they fail, so they take 1 damage, but they are not shaken, they are just disordered. All right, let's see. All right, now we move over more toward, this is more towards the rebel right center, and this rebel pike block, because they were within 6 inches of this unit, they declare a charge using their initiative, and so they're charging the other pike block. And while they're charging, the rebel shot fires on the government shot. Both missed. And as you can tell up here, I got a little, the picture doesn't show, but there's another rebel shot unit that fired upon this pike block right here to the right, and they missed as well. So no hits out of those 4 shots. All right, the rebel pike block, they attack. They have 6 attacks, needing 3s to hit because they're charging. They hit all 6 times. The government pike block saves 4 out of the 6 and takes 2 morale damage. Fighting back, the government pike block hit 3 times. The rebel forces fail on 2 out of the 3 saves, take 2 more damage, and therefore they have a total of 4 morale damage, and they become shaken. Due to them being shaken, they needed to take a test, and so they failed the test, and they needed to move back 1 movement. But because the other pike block can remain in contact with that retiring rebel force, they had to move 1 more time back to get out of the way, to disengage from that unit, and so they automatically become disordered as well. And over here on the top right, I show the mortar firing, but it missed everything, so it didn't. There was nothing that it did. All right, that was the end of everything in the Rebel Center, which turned out to be pretty much a disaster for them. And over here, this is the roll of the dice. This will make and break whether the Rebel forces make a game of this at all. The Rebel right flank commander issues a follow me order to the 3rd Cavalry Regiment and charges into the government 1st Cavalry Regiment. Okay, now I need to explain a little explanation here. When I have a battalion and they all are made up of the same type of unit, say you have a cavalry battalion. So normally in my notes I put down 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, however many there are. But what I failed to do in the first couple was to identify them in the photos so people could see who's in movement, who's retiring, who's charging, and then that way you could kind of keep it all organized in your head. So this is the culmination after the first 2 rounds of combat, where the 1st Regiment of Cavalry for the government forces were victorious and were able to, 1, defeat and destroy 1 cavalry regiment, the 1st Cavalry Regiment for the rebels, and then force the 2nd one to retire. And that's the units that has the disordered marker to the left in the photo with the 2 damage to their morale. So let's get back to the combat. All right, so the rebels charge, the government forces countercharge. Both have 6 attacks, and both need 3s to hit. So as you can tell, everybody hit with everything. But the rebel and the government tied the combat with 1 damage apiece. But because the government became shaken, they had to test, and so therefore the government force had to move back 1 full move. They moved through the 2nd Cavalry Regiment, and so they had the test for disorder, which they passed. But because they passed, and they are the victim of the rebel unit's sweeping advance, they could only hold and receive the charge. All right. The rebel forces have 8 attacks, and the government take 5 hits. They save 3, so they take 2 damage. The rebel cavalry, on the other hand, take 3 hits, they save 1, and take 2 damage. So in essence, the combat itself becomes a tie. But that moved this 3rd Regiment of rebel cavalry to Shaken, and so therefore they have to test, and they had to disengage from the combat and move back 1 move. But again, here's an example of where the enemy forces can remain in contact, and that'll force that losing unit to make an additional move. Well, that additional move not only moves them through their own friendly units, but it moved them off the table with the battalion commander. There's a big disaster for the rebel forces now. And that 2nd unit moves forward 1 extra move. As you can tell, it's up here by the almost past the woods now, and it's within striking distance of this disordered rebel cavalry unit, and so therefore this unit uses its initiative move to move off the table, because you see the end of this tree right here. This is where the government cavalry would end up, and so they're within 6 inches, so they can use their initiative, and they take their initiative to take this opportunity to move off the table. The rebel right and right center break down, and with no cavalry protection, the infantry begin to leave the table. So, as you can tell, this would turn into just a mopping up operation at the bottom half of turn 3, so we're not going to even bother with that. Any commander with his assault would try to save what he could with his army if they weren't already fleeing, and so we are going to end this here. So let's just kind of do like a small little recap. All right, as you can see here, right here in this center, right, there's really nothing. There's there's 2 normal sized pike blocks, and this one's almost, it's a fairly large pike block. Plus you have all the shot available. There's no way these shot units are going to survive this, especially with no cavalry protection. So we're going to end this game here. So let's go over the casualties. There were 3 units of cavalry for the rebels that were destroyed, 2 pike block units. 1 pike block unit was shaken, and 1 cavalry unit was shaken. So out of, let's see, there's 5, 6, 7 combat units. 5 of them are gone. 2 of them are shaken. Doesn't look good. So I think the obvious thing was for them to leave. And the government, and in retrospect now, there were a lot of units that had a lot of damage to them. But in total, the government only lost 1 unit of shot, 2 cavalry units shaken, and 1 pike block disordered. They still had enough punch to destroy the rebel force. So we're going to end it here. I appreciate everybody that stuck around with this. It was fun to do. I love the pike and shot rules. This was my first little walkthrough with it. Found it very interesting. I love the models. Anyway, I love the time period. So that brings us to the end of this one. I don't know what kind of solo wargaming project I'm going to do next. I might go back to ancients, maybe some Greeks and Persians. I don't know. Romans and Greeks. Who knows? I don't know yet. But thanks everybody for hanging in there. I appreciate it. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you want to. Let's stay in contact. Everybody stay safe and well. And I'll be back with a regular channel update later this week. Everybody stay safe. Everybody stay well. We'll see you next time.